are very happy to be involved in Inside Out. We love the Coronet Theatre, we love all the things they do, and I've been very happy to have been involved in two things there. One, the first thing was designing the set for the backdrop for Peter Gill's play, and that's where I met you and you met Gary, and we decided that you would help us with the film, which we did and presented at the cinema. I hope it all goes well, and hope to see you when you get back. Bye.
We're here to introduce the decorative potential of Blazing Factories, a new film, a film in a new genre really. My name is Gary Chitty, I'm a filmmaker. Bruce and I have worked together for many decades, starting with Nice Style, the world's first post band.
My name is Bruce McLean, I'm a sculptor. We first wrote the script, the decorative potential of Blazing Factories, in 1985. In 2018 we decided we'd actually try to make the film.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge because there were big ideas and scenes in the film, big vast landscapes, factories on fire, smoke, tanks, helicopters, limousines, cavalcade of limousines, the South Pole, icebergs.
You can make magic with nothing. And if you can't do it as Tarzan did in many films with a soft piece of brown leather, a length of string and a Bowie knife, that's all he had to conquer the world and save the world most times. If we can't do likewise with a bit of foam board, a bucket of paint, and Gary's lighting rig of 3 torches, then we can't do anything.
And I think the part of the film was a celebration of paint and painting as well. So we do see some fantastic imagery of really close-up painting, brush strokes, colours, vivid colours.
The decorative potential of Blazing Factories. Sarah, a highly regarded, internationally renowned painter from a wealthy aristocratic family, is working to create the largest and most important landscape painting of the 21st century. In order to achieve this, and to give her painting real authenticity and gravitas, she sets fire to her father's factory, located in the English landscape. Sarah is wearing a designer dress of massive volume, created for her by a famous Parisian fashion house. This sophisticated and beautiful dress requires complex and carefully engineered support apparatus. Her fast and flamboyant painting actions have to be choreographed with many devices and assistants. Meanwhile, in her father's nearby mansion, a safety committee meeting, which is being held in front of a grand 75-ton cast-in-situ concrete fireplace, specifically designed for summit meetings, is interrupted by an enormous crack in the fireplace generated by the heat, which also sets fire to the copious safety committee notes. Sarah continues to paint as the smoke begins to form into 3 identical plumes. Sarah is working fast to capture the moment as the man from the Environment Agency arrives. Sarah's plan is to sell the painting and donate the money to the now jobless factory workers. But will the painting realize its decorative potential and sell? Will the factory workers lose their livelihoods? Will the safety committee go up in smoke? And will the spectacle of 3 gray smoke plumes rising in unison across the red sky cloud the environment man's judgment, or will he prosecute Sarah for creating pollution? Pollution levels high. Atmospheric composition dangerous. Particulate matter is combining with high levels of ozone. Pollen count decreasing to 2040. Sun rays decreasing to factor 4. Bronchial signs dangerous. Clouds are towering gray over the red-streaked sky. The light is flickering. The artist is working feverishly. Her work explores the relationship between the University of Myth and recycling culture, with influences as diverse as Turner, Miles Davis, and Barnett Newman. New tensions are crafted from both simple and complex layers. She's been fascinated by the endless oscillation of meaning. What starts out as yearning soon becomes corroded with the dialectic of defeat, leaving only a sense of chaos and the inevitability of a new understanding. As wavering derivatives become distorted through studious and diverse practice, the viewer is left with a tribute to the outpost of our existence. The artist has had her father's factory set on fire to create the red skyscape she wanted for her landscape painting. The artist's work centers on the interest of the universality of our biological makeup and landscape, combined with a collective sense of the sublime. Her ambition is to create the greatest landscape painting of the 21st century. Utilizing strong vermilion, deep red, scarlet, alizarin crimson, rose madder, carmine red, process magenta, vermilion, Indian red, Van Dyke brown, Mars black and fluorescent red. The paint is splattering everywhere. It's a fight to keep the dress under control. The skyscraper is red with plumes of smoke. Plume peaks have toxic concentrations, breathing difficulties, and imminent danger to factory workers. Level 5. The artist is excited. She has succeeded in creating the new pollution look.
We have convened here today to discuss the problems of health and safety at the factory. Right. Item 1. Outstanding action points from previous meetings. Item 2. First aiders meeting GV will arrange a meeting of first aiders in the coming month. Good. Item 3. Thermometers. PV will replace all the thermometers with new ones to be located at various points around the building.
Item 4, visitor policy. A risk assessment has been completed regarding the current arrangements in respect of visitors, which confirmed a relatively low risk posed for unscheduled callers ET/ODDH.
Right, item 5, the feedback policy of accepting unscheduled visitors is to change or remain. Telephone points in stairwells. PW has received a quote. PW to determine the location of telephone points in stairwells, which will allow contact with the reception and a mobile link mobile for anyone who needs to stay in a fire refuge point or who is stuck between when the building is stacked up.
Item 6, I suggest PW to arrange fittings within the next few months.
Good. Now, action points. Item 7, the telephone points.
Item 8.
must stop, and stop now.
Who says it's art?
I do. It's a painting. It must be art.
I wish to differ. On page 448 in section 3.0 of the History of Contemporary Art, it states, this kind of behaviour of applying paint on a flat surface is no longer considered art, but a new major pollutant and possible threat to the world. It may be considered bad painting, but it's not fucking art. The new art will be environmental in content and deal with issues that take us off this planet, reference off plinth to other worlds, dealing with concepts not considered as art, e.g. a black hole sculpture.
I have here a document that has been issued to every person on site in triplicate, and it doesn't seem to have been read by anyone. There are 35 people around this table to discuss the problems in the factory of health and safety.
And it's not just health and safety, but the well-being of the displaced workers should be discussed as well. I think we talked about that, yeah?
The artist's mother arrives with an invitation for her daughter to represent the world at the world's first annuale, previously referred to as an annual, to be held on the equator. A hidden photographer in a tree is documenting the news, plus every brushstroke and dress movement. Photographer falls out of tree. A relatively complicated arrangement of bars and rectangles occupies the lower half of the canvas. The poured flow of liquid red over the darker brown billows like curtains parting, as if to disclose some deep space behind them. There is only a suggestion that the dark red horizontal might be read as a stage or platform. This is dispelled by the thick ooze of reds and blacks around its edges. The spatial drama is contradicted and complicated by a tactile pigment in a narrow division between the two enormous scarlet screens. The designer ecologist meets the politician and prepares to remove the broken section of the artist's dress. He intends to orchestrate a grand and brutalist ballet entitled The Red Girders, a ballet that has been designed to impress, inspire, and seduce the artist. The conversation between the ecologist and politician is interrupted by the arrival of the chauffeur-driven, ecologically unsound vehicles.
Well, when I had the crash, I unfortunately knocked off and destroyed 35% of the artist's dress.
Yeah, and?
Well, it has given me inspiration for the ballet, and turn a negative into a positive.
The construction workers are mostly engaged in their own disconnected worlds, some moving manically, others in slow motion. Occasionally they come together into tableaus, like a strange family portrait. They enter and exit unpredictably, and in general, the logic behind the sequence of events are either a bit obscure or have been abandoned altogether. The effect is a barrage of one image after another, without ever feeling like an idea reaches completion.
Annual Health and Safety Plan, Verbal Progress Report and Summary of 2019 to 2020.
Okay. Mr. G provided a report on the annual plan for health and safety, and he commented that following a pause in development, the master plan focus has moved forward to a number of smaller projects, namely construction safety with high girders during dance sequences.
This large photocopied mount-on-card drywall of a Louis XIV fireplace is to be considered as a background for the rehearsal of handshakes for the planned North-South Summit. The politician has actioned this for health and safety testing. The objective for today is to assess the benefits of one of the world's largest photocopies of a fireplace as a background to offer gravitas and style for the final picture.
Well, I can tell you that the most popular backgrounds for heads of state when they have very important meetings is the fireplace.
Yes.
These backgrounds are chosen for the most important political statements. The fireplace, antique or otherwise, needs to say a lot if you want to convey a sense of timeless grace and authority without looking either too ostentatious or plain.
Yeah, here.
With this incredibly talented cast, it would be easy to make the movement look beautiful and impressive. Instead, the high-vis jacketed dancers use deceptively difficult movements to keep you on the edge of discomfort. Quick changes of direction, mid-turn, combined with contorted angles and constant shifts of weight, creates an interesting awkwardness at odds with the obvious virtuistic skill and strength.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to bring attention to the concrete damage caused by the fire with some of the technical descriptions, if I may.
Well, other changes may occur in the aggregates at higher temperatures.
No. When subjected to heat, concrete responds, not just in transit.
Well, the aggregates... Don't forget the aggregates we used in the fireplace.
When subjected to heat, concrete responds. Not just in instantaneous physical changes such as expansion, but whilst undergoing various chemical changes.
But the aggregates as well, don't forget, were used in the fireplace.
Yes.
Will increase in volume due to the mineral transformation at about 575 degrees centigrade.
But
and limestone aggregates will decompose at 100 degrees centigrade.
Yes, but the responses are generally especially complex due to the non-uniformity of the material. Concrete contains both cement and aggregate elements, and these may react to heating in a variety of ways.
One of the most poorly understood processes, Mr. Chairman, in the reaction of concrete to higher temperatures of fire is that the explosive spooling, that is the process of whereby chunks of concrete break off and are ejected from the surface of the concrete slab, often at high velocities.
Right. Well, most porous concrete contain a certain amount of water in them, and this would always vaporise if the temperature significantly exceed the moisture plateau, a range of 100 to 140 degrees centigrade or so, normally causing a build-up of pressure within the concrete.
Yes, but if I can come back to the spooling, if severe, it can have a delirious effect on the strength of reinforced concrete structures due to the enhanced heat of the steel reinforcement.
If the temperature reaches around 400 degrees centigrade, the calcium hydroxide in the cement will begin to dehydrate.
Yes.
Generally, form a water vapour will also bring about a significant reduction to the physical strength of the material.
Mr. Chairman, the major change was confined to the surface near to the fire origin. But the nature of cracking and discoloration of the concrete suggested the material around the reinforcement reached about 700 degrees centigrade. Cracks which extended more than 3 centimetres within the depth of the structure were attributed to a short cycle due to the fire being extinguished.
In order to outdo and to impress and seduce the artist, the politician decides to gazump the designer ecologist with a Gesamtkunstwerk, thereby encapsulating the brutalist ballet and the greatest landscape painting in the world. This he intends to present in the 750-ton fireplace with fire, fighting fire with fire, so to speak. His production will be the most ambitious and dangerous presentation of this important work by Wagner ever.
Mr. Chairman, could I introduce a steel girder of the type used in the structure of the 7,500-ton fireplace? This is the actual steel painted with fire-retardant paint, and of course this hasn't been burnt because the paint is still intact. The structure below the level of collapse initiation offered minimal resistance to the falling building mass or the impact
Rubbish.
zone of
Absolute
the potential energy released by the heat of the downward
Rubbish.
movement of the large mass of fireplace. This far exceeded the capacity for the intact structure below to absorb the energy through energy or deformation.
And since the stories below the level of collapse initiation provided little resistance to the tremendous energy released from the falling building, there is no evidence of where the fire started.
Well, girder or no girder, we need to find the source of the fire.
Absolutely, yeah.
This idea seems to be the thesis of the piece. The dancers constantly subverting their own impressiveness, either through their technical play or through straight-up goofiness. Hyper-masculine presentation meshed seamlessly with Baroque posturing. Red Girder has a sense of self-consciousness, with solos and duets engaged in a nonchalant dance-off of showy moves. Red Girder is subtle and perhaps continues the meditations on the complexity of cool, where the person and the presentation meet. Had the politician been more informed, he might have presented Professor Gavin Breyer's version of Wagner's Ring Cycle, which was a 16mm loop of film with magnetic soundtrack, a speeded-up version that lasted as long as a click in the projector. The loop of film he could have used as an engagement ring for the artist, an elegant and minimal approach.
Well, is that hat worn by the artist suitable or appropriate to wear in winds of up to 60 miles per hour?
Well, not really, but it does offer some shade and create an enormous elliptical shadow. The ostentatious and over-the-top cooling system built into the hat I find aesthetically displeasing.
The craft of millinery has always concerned itself with geometry and volume, mathematical dimensions that are expressed artistically as sculpture or architectural form. At its most extreme, this can be seen in such bizarre creations as the Masaccio, the wicker-framed Renaissance headdress, whose perspectival complexities haunted the painter Paolo Uccello.
Mr. Chairman, in the 20th century, the Spanish Cristobal Balenciaga was perhaps the designer who most clearly brought such concerns to the fore in creations that combined consummate craftsmanship with an almost icy abstraction. Using geometry and mathematical theories, Balenciaga's analytical approach to design is exemplified by this spiral hat created towards the very end of his career. Taking the then fashionable pillbox as its starting point, the hat is formed from a rising spiral of cool cream silk.
And would that be raw silk?
Yes, and in its kineticist of voile, metric purity, a lucid translation of high modernist principles. The simplicity of the hat, along with its eschewal of colour for line, belies the craftsmanship that underpins it. Literally, in the three internal hair combs that support its Tower of Babel-like form.
But does it make it safe? Surely should be wearing something a bit more practical. Perhaps a Yohji Yamamoto sou'wester in reinforced waterproof nylon and a new high-vis pea green.
Mr. Chairman, the hat isn't the problem. The problem is a lack of water. We need to tackle the fire. It's critical that we now organise some icebergs.
After the arrival of the iceberg, brought in to put the fires out and cool the landscape, the artist immediately starts painting in shades of blue, cobalt, and ultramarine. Inspired by the wonderful reflections of the iceberg in the glacier lake, made from the melting of the ice, the artist creates a constable-type sky. The media have arrived to document some cool shots. firemen are now taking advantage of the newly formed lakes created by the iceberg. The iceberg is too late. The heat from the fire has cracked the table, broken the concrete fireplace, and destroyed the committee. It is a well-known fact that body language makes a huge impact on your ability to impress others. Of the many aspects of body language that count in impression management, the cues that you give off in the first few minutes or even seconds of meeting others play a particularly important role. Often you make these crucial first impressions when you enter an ongoing event or situation, whether it's social gathering, business meeting, date, or family occasion. By focusing on the way you walk into the room, you can control whether the rest of the encounter goes well or poorly for you. Stage performers are the consummate experts in making a good entrance. In a scripted performance, actors and directors work hard to ensure that each character's body language conveys an instant peek into his or her personality, motivation, and relationships with the other characters. Even classical musicians, who you might think of as controlling impressions by their ability to perform the piece, control the audience's reaction to their work by the way they make their appearance into the concert hall. We can conclude that making a confident and pleasing entrance can influence how you are perceived in those first moments after you first enter onto your own stage. However, the study also showed that the audience's initial reaction carried over to influence how they perceived the entire performance.
There are planners who have been tasked to pull together elements of what the military calls courses of action, COA. OAs. But we don't know how many personnel of all branches of the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines and Coast Guard are in that planning cell.
But, Mr. Chairman, I am positive this team has already started developing contacts and putting together contingencies incorporating all the services and several federal and local agencies. Now, these professionals are scouring over maps, drawing up timelines, determining resource requirements involving personnel, logistics and equipment, and looking for ways and times to rehearse the operation.
We meet here today for the first North-South Summit. Our objective is to reach agreement, not just between ourselves, but meaningful agreements that are political, economical, social and philosophical. Our agreement will be celebrated at an, as yet agreed, background location on the equator.
Mr. Chairman, there is an internecine war of words brewing over the cling film wrapped conferencing biscuit provision. As leaders, we call for an upgrade to the parochial bourbon hegemony that is prevailing.
Yeah, I understand, but pre-summit discussions also pertain to subsidiary rights vis-à-vis the provenance of plastic bottled waters. And as yet unnamed delegate expressed his dismay as the preferred bidder status of a new Thames estuary-based start-up beverage provider. This souped-up tap water in recycled cans is not acceptable.
And I would like to draw your attention to the new techno lanyards provided for the summit delegates, which are proving somewhat problematic. Fitted with radio frequency identification device, RFID tags, delegates are evidently spending a great deal more time in the hotel and entertainment facilities than they are in the summit proper.
That won't do, Mr. Chairman. I am delighted to announce that day one of the seminar will be preceded by a multi-sensory listening webinar.
I would like to bring to an end the conversations about the proposed soft furnishings deployment. An approved sofa based on a Mies van der Rohe mid-century modern design has been dismissed as Esperanto IKEA. This de-regionalized recumbent recliner presents an unfortunate stumbling block.
I propose that we urgently return to the agenda for heads of state for the North and South at a time when our rules-based international order is being challenged.
stand tall, and take up space. Power, status, and confidence are non-verbally displayed through the use of height and space. Keeping your posture erect, your shoulders back, and your head held high makes you look more sure of yourself. Research proves that we like and remember those who smile at us, and shows why we find them more memorable. Since touch is the most powerful and primitive nonverbal cue, it is worth devoting time in cultivating a great handshake. The right handshake can give you instant credibility, and the wrong one can cost you the job or the contract. Handshake behavior has cultural variations, but the ideal handshake in North America means facing the other person squarely and making firm palm-to-palm contact with the web of your hand. There is strong engagement at the signatory ceremony, and the United Global Executive Director called on companies around the world to set an internal carbon price at a minimum of $100 per metric ton over time.
mich hört dich in Nennen. Was Starke bestehen sich wähnen. Fast schäm ich mich, mit ihnen zu schaffen. Zur leckenden Lohne mich wieder zu wandeln. Spür ich lockende Lust, sie aufzuzehren, die Eis mit gezähmt, statt mit dem Blinden blöd zu vergehen und wäre es göttliche Götter. Nicht dumm dünkte mich das. Bedenken will ich.
The ceremony held on the first day of the agreement was open for signature, marking the initial step towards ensuring the agreement enters into force. The agreement can enter into force 30 days after 55 parties, accounting to 55% of emissions, deposit their instruments of ratification. The world would have met the requirement needed for the agreement to enter into force, said the Secretary General, if all 175 parties that signed today take the next step at the national level and join the agreement between North and South.
Ihr da im Wasser, was weint ihr herauf? Hört, was Mutter euch wünscht. Glänzt nicht mehr euch Mädchen das Gold in der Götter neuen Glanze, sonnt euch selig Vorteil.
The dress is handmade in raw satin and Duchess silk. The fabric pattern and design are made by teams of young French and Italian designers. The dress costs more than $250,000 and weighs 50 kilos. It can withstand winds of up to 60 miles an hour. The dress uses more than 80 miles of cotton thread and is best seen in low humidity conditions. The braid buttonhole for display jewelry is the most elegant. In an 8-element Congo gummy round braid with green-pink Picasso beads and Picasso drop beads, and a 5/8 of an inch metal button with shank to complete the ensemble. Did the Health and Safety Committee decision on cling-filmed wrapped biscuits affect climate change? Did the ecologist designers' brutalist ballet red girders cause a rethink on social housing? Did Wagner's Ring Cycle, staged by the politician, cause the collapse of the fireplace? And were there lessons learnt? Will the workers recover their livelihoods, impersonating themselves in a reconstruction of a one-to-one model of factory mansion and red carpet? Will the 2-kilometer-long red carpet, in a humidity-controlled museum with low lighting, dark, become an iconic work? Will the vast quantities of water created by the melting of icebergs produce a lake big enough to be dammed and used to create hydroelectric power? Workers re-employed? Will the marks and impressions left by the military pageant and politicians' cavalcade, lawn-mowing tanks and Land Rovers, be considered a major land artwork, or preserved as a memorial to the first North-South summit?
Works a bit better. The first three I'm not going to do anymore. Anyway, we'll speak to you soon. Bye bye. I hope this is better. Bye.